the most crucial moments of the day. We were sitting on a pretty massive two-day rally, Carol Massar, but the second day of that rally fading just a little bit as we get closer to the close.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a two-day bounce back, right, following off of Friday's rally, but not to be. And maybe some confusion over what we're going to get in terms of Trump tariffs. Maybe people are just waiting. We have a lot of jobs data, economic data, Fed minutes coming our way, so maybe people are just waiting.
How have you guys not talked about Bitcoin?
We did. Romaine did.
Okay,
we did. Do you
he
not watch our
delivered.
show?
He does not watch.
What have you been
rude.
doing for the past hour?
For the past
3-hour show.
For the past 2 hours.
Oh, okay.
Bitcoin back above $100,000. 102,000 right now, up another 3.7% today. See if we see some new highs. Maybe ahead of Bloomberg Crypto tomorrow.
Oh, look, shameless
look
tease.
at that. Shameless plug there.
Let's not forget also Nvidia was a big gainer in earlier trading and gaining as much as 5.3%. It's paired its advances as well. Jensen Huang going to be speaking at CES in Las Vegas. What is he going to say about Blackwell, the next gen AI chip that everyone has put so much of their hopes on AI on?
And also, you already saw Nvidia kind of rally today. You had the chips index doing pretty well, SOX index doing well. Nvidia, the outperformer there. Is that already baked in at this point? And is it going to be a show me story today at CES?
Yeah, absolutely. Though some folks, some analysts on the street, of course, a little concerned here about when we see the payoff in AI, that downgrade earlier today for some of the software companies like Salesforce and Palo Alto over at Guggenheim because of concern that the payoff for AI might not actually materialize for some of those companies on a revenue and profit basis. We get the closing bells in New York. A little bit of reason to cheer. The S&P off the highs of the day. It's going to close back below 6,000, but it's still higher on the day by about 30 points or 0.6%. The Nasdaq Composite higher by about 1.2% on the day, or about 240 points. The Dow Jones Industrial Average and the Russell 2000, those are your outliers, each lower on the day by only by a fraction of a percent, each down about 0.1% on the day.
All right, back to the big caps. The S&P 500, guys, not quite an even split, but pretty close to it. Scarlett, you've got 232 names to the upside, 268 to the downside.
All right, let's take a look at the IMAP, which shows the breakdown by economic sectors. And you have 4 sectors in the green: communication services, infotech, and materials leading the way. Infotech up 1.4%, communication services gaining more than 2%. On the flip side, your laggards include real estate investment trusts and utilities, each losing about 1%. Consumer staples also down by almost 1%.
All right, a fair amount of green there. And Scarlett, you really kind of teed up my gainers today because you have the Philadelphia Semiconductor Index, folks, well off its highs, at its highs up about 4.2% in the Monday trade, but finishing the day just up about 2.8%. You had Nvidia server assembly partner Foxconn coming out, and they reported faster than expected revenue growth on continuing demand for AI infrastructure. So that really kind of helped give some enthusiasm and juice the overall sector. So on that, kind of staying with that trend, Nvidia, as we talked about earlier, at its highs, up more than 5% in today's session. And we do see a new record when it comes to Nvidia, so topping that peak that we saw back in November, finishing the day, though, with a gain of about 3.4%. Jensen Huang is expected to give his speech from CES in Vegas. That's 9:30 p.m. Wall Street time, so 6:30 p.m. local. So we'll be looking for anything he has to say about new products. So that will certainly be something to keep a eye on. And Supermicro Computer, number 2 gainer in the S&P 500, guys, up more than 9% in today's session. Lynx Equity Strategies writes that address from Jensen Huang at CES could be a positive catalyst for the stock. So something to keep an eye on. Certainly Nvidia, but really that overall space. And I should point out, Stryker nearing a deal to buy Inari Medical. This is something that happened late days. Reuters reporting this, and Inari Medical was up about 30% at its high, so kicking up higher on that news.
All right, Carol with the gainers. I got the decliners. I do want to start with ADRs of Tencent Holdings Limited, falling today by more than 7.8%. This after the Defense Department said the tech firm was a Chinese military business operating in the U.S. Tencent, among several companies that were labeled as Chinese military entities in a Federal Register filing. Now, this blacklist from the Pentagon doesn't in and of itself carry specific sanctions, but what it does is it tends to discourage U.S. firms from trading with entities on that list. In a statement, Tencent said its presence on the list was clearly a mistake. We are, quote, not a military company or supplier, a company spokesperson said. And paychecks down today by 2.6%. They fell after the company reported that the payroll processing company is in advanced talks to acquire Paycor HCM. A deal could be announced as soon as this week, according to people with knowledge of the matter. Paycor shares, by the way, jumping more than 20% in today's session. And finally, rounding it out with Palo Alto Networks, shares fell today by about 2%. This after Guggenheim Securities cut the recommendation to sell from neutral. Price target set to $130, a 29% decrease from closing yesterday.
I gotta say, guys, some of the action was most definitely within the bond market. So I'm taking a look at where we ended. You're looking at the long end up by about 2-3 basis points. The front end saw a little bit of buying, but we had a 3-year auction and it really wasn't that awesome at the end of the day. You had indirect bidders were not great, the lowest in about 3 months. Yes, the bid to cover was strong, highest in September, but it was the dealers and direct bidders that had to pick up all that slack. We don't love that. And that's headed into the 10-year auction tomorrow, 30-year on Wednesday. We get $39 billion tomorrow. That's, I think, going to be really interesting, particularly if we're talking about 5% yields in the 30-year, 4.5% on the 10-year, or past that. But that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, Michael McKenzie was on earlier talking about some of the auctions this week and saying, especially when you're looking at longer term, investors want to be paid to make those bets longer term. All right. To some of the stories that are on our radar. And I know everybody's been talking about the congestion pricing that kicked off in New York City. It makes us think a lot about mass transportation. For any of us who take it, we all do, I think it's safe to say. New York City subway, not a great year. Violence. It's one of the most dangerous years on records, 2024. And so we're just seeing violent incidents. I mean, just look at the headlines. I feel like over the last couple of weeks, it's been pretty rough for anybody who's riding the New York subways.
Yeah, Catherine Wild, who runs the Partnership for New York City, it's a business group made up of the city's largest companies, JP Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, and more, says that the MTA is going to have to spend more to improve safety on trains. I wonder if that will happen as a result of congestion pricing, which kicked off yesterday. But it sort of remains to be seen. There's this tension with getting people back to work, filling up offices, and making sure that people feel safe on their commute.
Well, that's what I'm curious about. I mean, half the point of the congestion pricing was to funnel that money to make improvements to the MTA, both in terms of security and other things as well. And I know they've tried to make some improvements since the pandemic, and I've noticed a few, but, it's a pretty sprawling network. I mean, I don't know. I mean, how much can you do beyond what's already been done?
Well, also, isn't it all relative? Like, if you grew up in New York in the 70s, this is so much better. But, it's still violent. So it's like, isn't it relative basis?
What's troubling for a lot of people is just how random it is. In a lot of cities around the world where there are really not great neighborhoods, you know what to avoid, you know how to stay safe. But if you're taking the subway and it could happen in any subway station, then it just feels like you have no control over the situation at all.
All right. There's actually some breaking news right now on Ulta Beauty. The CEO set to retire. The company out with a statement announcing the CEO transition, saying that Dave Kimball will retire as chief executive officer after 11 years with the company. Right now, Keisha Steelman, who's the president and chief operating officer, will succeed Dave Kimball as president and chief executive officer. That is in effect today, January 6, 2025. There you have it. Ulta CEO retiring after 11 years. The COO now is going to be the CEO starting today.
Another story that we're paying a lot of attention to, of course, is the idea that talent is hard to get. And when you do have it, you want to hold on to it for as long as possible. Citadel, the hedge fund run by Ken Griffin, has extended its non-compete agreements for some of its portfolio managers to 21 months, which is way longer than a lot of its
Can I ask a question? Is this just garden leave?
No.
So this is different than garden leave. So you don't get paid for these 21 months while you're just waiting around to switch jobs? We don't know.
Well, I bet the company that's hiring you would have to account for you not getting paid during that time, right?
That's a good point.
So then the new
there's
firm
got to
would
be
have
There's got to be something. I mean, because if you're losing pay for 21 months, there's going to be some kind of backlash on that.
You're out of the game. You're not keeping up to date with stuff.
Yeah.
I guess.
Hey, can I pivot to other breaking news?
Yes,
too?
please.
Meta. You remember Dana White?
Yeah.
He's now going to be on the Meta Platforms board.
That's interesting.
Wow.
UFC CEO Dana White being added to the board over at Meta Platform. In fact, 3 new directors being added to the board, including Charlie Songhurst and John Elkin. But probably the name that's going to get the most attention is Dana White, who, of course, runs the mixed martial arts league, UFC.
And didn't they just change their head of policy as well, right? From Nick Clegg to Joel Klein, who's the Republican.
Yeah, you see what's going on.
The resident Republican in the company.
And Dana White, of course, kind of the resident Trump friend, buddy, if you will. He has a long-standing relationship with the president-elect. So,
Mark Zuckerberg's made a couple of trips over to Mar-a-Lago as well.
I've heard, yeah. Is that going to pull you back onto Instagram, the metaverse, whatever he's got going these days?
The metaverse?
Who
talks about the metaverse these days?
I don't know, Mark Zuckerberg, I don't know.
But he probably hopes to avoid all the ire from Mar-a-Lago, though, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting, guys. It's going to be interesting. All right, that's a wrap. Our cross-platform coverage, radio, TV, YouTube, Bloomberg Originals. We call it Closing Bell. We'll see you again, same time, same place tomorrow.